Listen close, because what's coming isn't a storm you watch from the window, it's the kind that kicks down your door. The world thinks the worst crashes are history, 1929, 2008. But history has a cold way of reminding us you can't fix what you don't face. And right now, we're sprinting toward a cliff with our eyes on our phones, our money in the clouds, and our faith in systems that crack the moment pressure hits. But this isn't a warning, it's a wake-up call. Because crashes don't just break markets, they reveal the people who rise. Everybody's talking about history, 1929, 2008, like they were the final boss. But the truth, the next hit is already winding up, and it's moving faster, harder, and with no warning label. And you can't outrun something you refuse to look at. We're living in a world where collapse has a new speed limit. Back then, markets dropped by the hour. Today, they drop by the algorithm. You blink, and billions vanish. You refresh your screen, and the ground under you is already different. In 2008, a giant like Lehman needed a whole day to crumble. Now, $40 billion can disappear in a weekend. In 2022, that's exactly what happened to a major crypto platform. Gone in 72 hours. Not a crash, a digital implosion. Like watching a skyscraper fall and fast forward. Picture that speed hitting mortgages, or bank reserves, or retirement accounts belonging to people who've worked their whole lives and trusted the system to show up for them. That's the danger of 2026. The faster everything moves, the harder the fall feels on impact. It's like driving down a highway at night, music loud, windows down, and the road disappears. Not because you weren't talented, because you weren't ready. But speed isn't the villain. Speed is a vehicle. It can slam you into a wall, or it can catapult you into a future you didn't think you were ready for. It depends on whether you're gripping the wheel or letting the car drive you. I remember talking to a young guy, smart, hungry, confident. He told me, I made 30 grand this month. He said it with that glow, that shine you only see in somebody who thinks they cracked life's secret code. 3 months later, he was calling me from his car in a parking lot, hands shaking, voice breaking. He had lost everything, not because he was dumb, but because he was fast without being grounded. Speed without preparation is just a shortcut to a wall. So here's what speed asks of you. Stay awake, stay educated, stay disciplined. Don't chase noise. Don't bet your future on a trend that can evaporate while you're asleep. You want protection. Build skills nobody can crash. You want opportunity. Study patterns before they become headlines. You want to survive what's coming. Practice calm before chaos arrives. Speed cuts both ways. It can wipe you out, or it can lift you higher than you've ever been. But only if you're steady. Only if you're intentional. Only if you're ready before the world decides to test you. Because the crash isn't the enemy. The unprepared mind is. Let me tell you something straight. The ground we're standing on isn't as steady as we pretend it is. Back in 1929, back in 2008, the walls cracked because of three things: debt, speculation, panic. Simple. Not easy, but simple. Today, we've stacked so much extra weight on the same weak beams. It's like piling chairs, boxes, lamps, and your grandma's old piano onto a table with one loose leg. You don't need to be an expert to see what happens next. You just need to listen for the creak. Everywhere you look, the pressure's building. People carrying massive consumer debt, living on credit, surviving on "I'll pay it later." Tech companies floating on valuations thinner than tissue paper, worth billions on Monday, worth nothing by Friday. Supply chains stretched like cheap rubber bands, snapping every time a port shuts down or a ship gets stuck. And nations, they're not firing missiles, they're firing interest rates, tariffs, and sanctions. Economic bullets that hit harder because they're invisible. And here's the one that keeps me up at night: a whole generation building their entire financial identity on screens, apps, wallets, speculative coins, without learning the basics their grandparents lived by. Ask somebody under 30 what a bond yield is, and they'll hand you a TikTok instead of an answer. We've become a digital economy standing on analog legs, and in 1929, most people didn't even own stock. It was a game for the few. When the market fell, the shockwaves didn't hit every household. But in 2026, almost everyone is strapped in, whether they know it or not: your retirement account, your home value, your business loan, your side hustle tied to online payment systems. Even your mortgage can shift because some banker halfway across the world sneezed. When the table shakes now, nobody gets to sit it out. Everybody feels the vibration. Kids, parents, small business owners, that couple saving for their first place, that man who thought he was finally safe. You, me, all of us. I remember a friend of mine, steady guy, worked 20 years at the same company, never chased the hype, never gambled his paycheck. He always said, "I'm not in the markets." Then one day, he opens a letter about his retirement account losing value. He calls me and says, "How did I lose money in something I wasn't even in?" And I told him, "We all are now. That's the new world." He paused and said, "Nobody told me that." And I said, "They don't have to tell you. You just have to feel the table shake." So what do? You don't panic, you prepare. You don't rely on one source of income. Build two, build three. You learn the basics of money, not the trends. You stop living on borrowed time and borrowed credit. You pay attention to the cracks before the collapse, because the foundation may be weaker now, but your awareness, your discipline, your choices, those are the tools that keep you standing when the table finally tips. Let me level with you. Right now, the markets aren't being moved by logic or math or spreadsheets. They're being moved by emotion. Raw, unfiltered emotion. People aren't just investing money anymore. They're investing identity. They're betting their pride, their status, their sense of belonging. Every tap on an app, every sell feels like a statement of who they are. And when your self-worth is tied to a number on a screen, you're not trading stocks, you're trading pieces of your soul. That's why the danger is so much bigger now. Because when fear hits that kind of psychology, the market doesn't walk down the stairs. It doesn't even run, it stampedes. It panics like a herd pushed by a sudden loud noise, no direction, no plan, just motion. And a crowd running scared can trample even the strongest among them. I saw this firsthand. There was this young trader I met back in 2021. Bright kid, sharp eyes, fast hands on the keyboard. He told me he turned $3,000 into 200,000 trading meme stocks. He talked with that spark, the one that only shows up when someone thinks they finally found the shortcut. He told me, "I can't lose. I figured it out. I didn't want to break his high, so I just listened." A year and a half later, that same kid sat across from me with his head down, hands shaking, whispering about the debt he'd piled on trying to win it back. Not because he was unlucky, not because he was stupid, but because he made the same mistake many people make today. He tied his worth to the win. When you do that, losing feels like dying. So you chase harder, risk bigger, ignore warning signs, silence the voice inside that says, "Slow down." And that's how emotion, your own emotion, can wreck you faster than any crash. In 2026, emotion might cause more damage than economics, because economics has rules. Emotion doesn't. It's the friend who shows up drunk at your doorstep at 3 a.m. It's unpredictable, loud, dramatic, destructive. And the market absorbs that energy like a sponge. I remember my mother's voice when I was young, standing over me after I'd lost something small but felt something big. She said, "Baby, feelings aren't facts, they're just weather. Don't build your house in a storm." That line has saved me more times than money ever has. Because if you build your decisions on temporary emotions, the whole foundation cracks. So what do now? You breathe before you click. You think before you follow the crowd. You ask yourself, is this a choicey or is this a feeling? You separate your identity from your investments, your worth from your wins, your future from your fear. Because when emotion drives the car, the crash isn't just likely, it's guaranteed. But when you drive steady hands on the wheel, clear mind, grounded heart, you can navigate any storm 2026 brings. Let me tell you something people often forget. A crash doesn't just break things, it clears the field. It wipes the slate. It forces a reset in a world that refuses to slow down on its own. Every time history took a beating, something stronger stood up afterward. In 1929, when everything collapsed and people lined up at banks with fear in their eyes, whole new industries were born. Innovation didn't hide, it fought its way through the rubble. In 2008, when the housing market cracked open and the world swore the system had failed, a new wave of entrepreneurship rose. Fintech, digital banking, the very tools people rely on today were built in the shadow of that crisis. And 2020, everybody remembers that one. The world shut its doors, but suddenly remote work exploded. AI advanced like it had wings. E-commerce turned garages into warehouses and living rooms into offices. Pressure creates transformation. Always has, always will. I remember walking with a friend right after his business collapsed in 2020. He had built it from scratch. Blood, sweat, late nights, early mornings, the whole package. One day he walked in confident. The next he walked out carrying a cardboard box of memories. He told me, "I lost everything." I looked at him and said, "No, you lost what you built, but you didn't lose the hands that built it." There's a difference. 2 months later, he started again, smaller, smarter, leaner. 1 year after that, he was doing better than before. Not because he was lucky, because the crash forced him to see what he ignored when times were good. The cracks, the weaknesses, the blind spots. Sometimes the fall is the flashlight we didn't know we needed. In every collapse, there are always a few who stand in the ruins and whisper, "This is my ground zero." They don't deny the destruction. They don't pretend it isn't painful. They just refuse to let it be the final chapter. They use the quiet after the explosion to hear themselves clearly for the first time. They rebuild with intention, with humility, with fire. A crash doesn't choose winners. It doesn't hand out trophies. It doesn't care how confident you sounded last year or how much you posted about success. It respects only three things: preparation, awareness, and discipline. Preparation means you don't wait for the crisis to pack your parachute. You build skills before you need them. You save money before it's urgent. You learn the landscape before it shifts. Awareness means you look up from the noise. You read, you listen, you observe. You pay attention to where the world is going, not just where you hope it will stay. And discipline is the quiet engine. It's doing the boring things consistently. Managing your spending, studying your craft, staying focused when everyone else is distracted. So when the next crash comes, and trust me, something is always coming, you won't just survive it, you'll use it. You'll treat it not as an ending, but as an opening, an invitation to rebuild stronger than before. Let me tell you something people forget. When the world starts shaking, your advantage has never been money. Money comes and goes. Money rises, disappears, returns in a different form. But mindset is the one thing the market can't take from you. It's the one currency that doesn't crash. And when everything feels unstable, that's the anchor that keeps you standing tall. I've seen people with deep pockets crumble the moment the pressure hits. I've also seen folks with almost nothing rise because their mind was built like reinforced steel. The difference between the ones who survive and the ones who rise is simple. They don't freeze. They don't fold. They focus. Laser focus, that quiet, steady, unshakable kind that doesn't flinch when the world starts shouting. Mindset looks like choosing to build skills instead of excuses. Everybody's got a reason why they can't, but that won't keep you warm during a storm. Skills will. Skills are the tools you carry into every season, good or bad. A person who can adapt, pivot, learn fast, learn deep becomes recession-proof, crash-proof. Fear-proof. Mindset looks like diversifying, not gambling. Too many people want the thrill, the rush, the instant win. They want fireworks, but what they need is a flashlight. Spread your risk. Build multiple streams. Don't put your future in the hands of a single coin toss. A garden grows because you plant more than one seed, not because you bet everything on a magic bean. Mindset looks like studying history, not headlines. Headlines scream, history teaches. Headlines tell you what's happening right now. History tells you why it's happening and what comes next. Every crisis leaves clues. Every crash follows patterns. If you know the past, you don't panic. You anticipate. You adjust. You move with purpose instead of fear. Mindset looks like controlling emotion instead of chasing hype. That's the hardest one because hype feels good. It's loud. It's shiny. It's exciting. But emotion-led decisions are like driving in the rain with your eyes closed. It might feel thrilling until you hit something you can't walk away from. Control your breath and you control your choices. Control your choices and you control your future. I learned this lesson early. I remember losing a job I thought I was born to have. I walked out angry, embarrassed, ready to blame everybody. But after a long walk and a long talk with myself, I realized something powerful. I couldn't control the loss, but I could control what I did next. So I trained, learned, pushed. And years later, I looked back and realized that moment didn't break me, it built me. Not because of luck, not because of timing, but because of mindset. A crash doesn't care about your RA summe. It doesn't care about your followers or your trophies. but it absolutely rewards who become when everything gets loud, dark, and uncertain. And when you build the right mindset, you don't just weather the storm, you walk out of it stronger, sharper, and ready for whatever the world throws next. Listen to me now, because this part matters. If the 2026 crash comes, and every signal, every tremor in the distance is hinting that something big is moving our way, don't let fear be the first voice you hear. Fear is loud, but it's not wise. Fear shakes your hands, fogs your vision, steals your breath. When the world tilts, your first instinct will be to retreat, to hide, to freeze. But freezing never saved anybody. Not in a fire, not in a storm, not in a crash. You don't fear it, you face it. You meet it at the door like someone who knows exactly who they are. You look that chaos in the eye and say, "You're not here to break me. You're here to reveal me." Because that's what pressure does. It reveals. It shows you what's real. It strips away the noise and leaves only the truth. I remember a moment years ago, standing in my tiny apartment after losing something I thought was my whole future. Everything felt heavy, quiet, unfamiliar. I sat on the edge of that old couch, the one with the springs poking through. And for the first time, I said out loud, "This is it. This is my breaking point." But then something inside me answered back, calm and steady, "No, this is your sharpening point." And that shift, that tiny shift, changed everything. Because the situation didn't get easier. I just got stronger. I decided to fight, to build, to grow. Not because the world gave me a reason to, but because I gave myself one. When the world breaks, the people who rise are never the ones with the biggest bank accounts. Money can't hold you together when life is falling apart. It can't rebuild you when your confidence cracks. It can't speak courage into your spirit when everything feels dark. The people who rise are the ones with clarity, who know what they stand for when everything shifts under their feet. They're the ones with courage, who take the step even when their knees shake. And they're the ones with fight, quiet, gritty, unshowy fight, the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that survives long nights and tough mornings. You have that inside you. You might not feel it yet, but it's there. It's in the choices you've made, the storms you've already survived, the dreams you refuse to let go of. It's in the way you keep getting back up even when nobody's watching. That's fire. That's strength. That's the kind of power no crash can take from you. So when the moment comes, when the headlines get loud, when people start panicking, when the ground trembles, don't shrink. Rise. Focus. Lean into the preparation you've built, the discipline you've practiced, the mindset you've sharpened. You don't wait for the world to steady itself. You steady yourself. Because the truth is simple. You don't need to fear the storm when you are the one carrying the fire. Now take that fire and aim it.